And that's transcendence, because what is it? You have a bunch of parts, a bunch of dots drawn out, and they're not synchronized. It could be chaos. But what
Yeah.
happens if they synchronize, and now you have a painting or a picture or pixels on a screen, and you can see, a beautiful work of art. Without that synchronization pattern, there is no higher dimensional continuum.
Right. I was shown once from somebody else that there is that the underlying reality that should have been here, or that would be here, is harmonic, and the that the way that it was distorted was by pulling out chords of the harmonic so that it couldn't be harmonic. And I was shown something that looked like cuneiform that was raised up off of the matter, that it was like these changing writing, and I wanted to look at it, and because I felt like if I looked at it more closely, I could understand what it was saying. And then I realized that if I did that, my focus would have gone there, and the person who was sharing this information would then not be sharing it. So that was something kind of interesting that happened. And then also, I was in a 2 month period of total synchronicity where everything was literally synchronous from one moment to the next. There was nothing and I was able to contain it for about, I'd say, a month, where just I'd look at the newspaper and there was something that was personal to me, or there would be something played on the radio that was on a rap station, and it would be angelic music, and it was just, everything was constantly synchronous. And at about a month and a half, I couldn't hold it. I couldn't contain that much synchronicity, and I started to want it to stop because I couldn't handle it. That it was as if my body wasn't wired to do it, and so I began moving out of that whatever it was, that period that I triggered. But it was really interesting. It was very personal and very. Um, there was nothing that wasn't synchronous. I mean, literally nothing.
Yeah, those are, you know what that is. It's a higher dimensional alignment, and we perceive it down here as, things just happening according to plan. As far as the language, the hieroglyphic, the cuneiform you were talking about, basically that's what they were doing in Egypt. They knew how
Yeah.
to use symbolism to communicate knowledge, not words, ideas,
Mm-hmm.
references. It was literally a living language of knowledge, and that it
Yeah.
was, it was active, and they had that part of their perception system activated. And there's a whole bunch more stuff that goes back to the ancient civilizations. So, excuse me. Some of them would perform minor brain surgery because they perceived that certain parts of the brain were implants from this type of control system of overlords. And they would
Huh.
copy, right? I don't know if you've seen people lined up getting basically bopped in the head. There were some ancient paintings, and there's the skulls broken open, but not basically.
Wow.
It was people who had they found the skulls where there would be like a little notch, and it was like clearly this was like somebody chiseled a piece of their brain out, and they perceived that there were parts of the brain that were implants
Huh.
that were used to lock them into this dimension, and they were removing them
Wow.
consciously, materially,
Wow.
and then
So this is an old story.
oh yeah, well we see the
Very
same
old.
thing happening today.
Yeah. Well, like they say, there's nothing new under the sun.
That's what they say.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, so basically
Well,
those
is there any?
things, those
Yeah, go
those
on.
maxims, they come from these societies, these secret groups, because they're interdimensionally operating on Earth. They've been here for millions of years with their consciousness intact through these methods.
Right. 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 That's what I thought. I mean, that pretty much confirms what I've seen and felt. And it would almost have to be that way for things to be this way.
Exactly, which kind of makes it seem it's going to be okay in the end because we only have this chaos and distortion so that we have this awakening that's going to come from it.
Well, now you did say that there's going to be some kind of total disclosure of all of the secret projects exposed to the public. What gives you that impression that it's going to happen?
They told me that was what they were going to do.
But it seems okay. But it seems like every time that's been contemplated, that something stops it.
More or less, but then we get the idea that if it doesn't happen now, it will never happen. We'll advance too far into technology, and basically there will be so much technology, so much metal, that this alternate intelligence hive mind will become active, and once that happens, there's no chance. People will have to get rescued, and this whole dimension will be forfeited. And in the same sense, there's soft disclosure everywhere.
Yeah.
In the same sense, I'm not supposed to be too specific about this, but you'll catch my drift. I've written a few posts on this. I also want to give you one. I'll send you the link of a side blog, which I'm kind of trying to do to just make it more easy to get the bulk of the information, the basics, instead of having to go through all my crazy writings on the blog regarding the unveiling, the basics outline of that. Because basically, everybody that we can talk about, I've interacted with in some way. They're basically pulling this show that we call politics and society or civilization.
Right.
They're doing this to bring about exposure and disclosure because they know that they're going to be food if they continue. So what we see now with this whole domestic investigation taking place, the whole exposure of hidden assassinations, selling of state secrets, contacting foreign nations and basically doing business with them, that's being exposed as part of a plan to bring about disclosure. Regardless, this is also the time where great changes take place. Everyone saw that in the device. That's what we saw. And we're already on a slightly different timeline because I would have already been in a different situation than I am in now. But that same situation is kind of showing itself again. So we'll see. But ultimately, it's already been disclosed. It's already happened. And there is a theory that we all already made it out of the AI mind F situation, and that we're literally just replaying this to see what we can do better next time or how we can help others, which is a real mind F. But basically, if disclosure happens, if it doesn't happen, it's no longer like that. It's the degree where, regardless of what happens, of who gets in charge, who's in power, it's already set that it's happening. There's exposure happening from the inside out. The control system is destroying itself and collapsing in. The agents that are being used are waking up to the fact that they've been lied to, and they're serving something that's destroying humanity. And it's not about their paycheck, not about their little wife or girlie or whatever they're doing and their kids. It's literally about this universe collapsing in on itself because we are the generators of experience in this universe, in this space. And so they're starting to realize it. They're starting to see that the secrecy, the gnosis, the occult meanings, the rituals, it's not just some secret shit they do to keep the power. They've literally been operating in and out of time, and we're going to have to come to terms with this now or very soon from now and deal with it. Or it's not that we'll deal with it later, it's that we won't exist later. They're realizing that on the inner circles. And by that I mean the outer circles, but to us it's the inner circles. The true inner circle, they're not even in this universe anymore. They basically navigate it out. And so I've seen that, I was told that, and I saw that when I was 9 in these devices. In 2010 everything was kind of put forth this plan. And everything's falling into play. With the celebrity cloning, with the AI, with the programmable matter, with the nations and the prophecy that's gone down, with the disclosure of so-called alien life, which is not what we think, with the other intelligence inhabiting bodies and manipulating our history with the information, it's all coming to a convergence in this period of time. All the variables have to come to some type of collusion or organization. There are no variables for everything to just be like flittering around. Like, this is the part of the dream where we either wake up or we go into another dream. This dream can't continue in the same. There's too many variables that need that. So it's not so much. It's ultimately, it's not a decision. It's just something that's happening, and all they can do is prepare people for it. I do like to side with the idea that we've already made it out, and we're kind of doing a rerun to see how many other souls we can gather.
I like that too.
And they also said that no humans are going to be left behind. Even if they die, that no humans are just going to be tossed into the abyss. That the whole thing's to be tuned up and turned. They described shit like this. They said there are, besides the fact that the Nephilim and the giant races, that there are giants. They said that the ancient megalithic structures, the ancient devices that are theorized to be deep, deep into the earth, that they actually turn on when our consciousness goes into, oh shit, suicidal panic mode, and they activate those beams of energy. They act as beacons for that galactic core energy to chime in and raise the energy of everything on the surface.
Wow.
But the thing is, everyone has to disable the negative grid, because with that negative occultic energy grid, if that's activated, it won't activate. It will basically, it'll be like us saying, no thanks, a little bit of freedom and stuff, nah, we'll stay here. That's basically what it looks like on an energetic level, which is essentially what people are doing, if you think about it.
Yeah, well, that seems to be what's happening now. So it just makes me wonder if everything is interconnected and synchronized, then the disclosure and all of that would supposedly trigger what already has happened, which is that the humanity would synchronize and that the devices would turn on.
Right. That is essentially the only thing that can happen. We've just been delaying it in this type of limbo time, going back and forth, bouncing in and out, messing around with these created beings and foreign intelligences. Yeah.
Well, there must be a reason why we're doing this. And like I said, I like what you said about, we're looking for better ways to handle the situation. That makes sense. Anything else is just foolishness.
Right. Ultimately, that's kind of what that also means. That if that's not what's happening, then what the hell is happening? But
exactly.
Specifically, they told me that the team that I was introduced to and the others that you see popping up now, speaking on a lot of the projects and disclosure, are basically those who made it and volunteered to come back, reinsert themselves through the code of this space, this life terrarium system, and try and reinvigorate others to make it a bit easier, to make it a bit more expansive and reflective of our true nature, to make it that much more meaningful. And I just had another thought, but it went away.
So Corey Good, you would say, is legitimate.
We were in the same program. I don't like talking about people who aren't fully aware of what I'm aware of, because that means that they don't have their memories yet fully. Everything you can see now, I've seen. They've been in the programs. What he's talking about is one aspect of this whole plethora of stuff that I have described to you. Whether, I fully agree or not, I'm not necessarily talking on, but he's seen the advanced technology. He's been on the craft. and he's met higher beings, and he's basically chosen to assist in helping humanity remember this whole thing, that we've been here for millions of years, and something's been pressing the reset button through electromagnetic scalar technology and wiping our memories and repositioning us in another portion of the timeline and playing the whole thing over like a rerun.
Yeah. That seems pretty obvious. Wow. Well, I for some reason I resonate to the way that you are explaining things and the way you see things, because it makes a lot more sense to me than the way he describes them, although I can see that that's a possibility also. I mean, everything's possible, and everything probably is a reality somewhere.
Exactly. It's all possible. It's about what we really were going to bring into manifest for our timeline that's going to integrate us into the higher continuity that you described before, that eternal time. There are many ways to it. Some are more scenic and some are more rough than others.
Well, I'm sure glad you're around, because it's the first time I've ever talked to anybody that really seems to know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've talking to you.
I've talked to a lot of people.
It's about the mind. You can tell we're on the same frequency because we keep trying to chime back in at the same time. But
yeah,
it's about the mind control tech. Everyone has this loopy look on their face, this kind of staggered appearance, because we've all been shocked with a bunch of high voltage stuff that wipes our memories, and we've lived to talk about it.
Right.
So I've made, paradoxically again, I've maybe had the most of that done, so I'm most comfortable with talking about it. Which again,
that's interesting. Well, George Kavasilis is another one that has brought in some information that was pretty interesting.
I've only looked into a little bit of what he says. A few people on the side I agree with. Henry Macau, and I keep hearing George's name, and I've seen his name around, but for instance, I haven't looked into it so deep that I can instantly remember everything he talks about. I'm sure if I look at one quip of it, I'll understand. But again, with the going through that torturous process, making it easier for me to know at least that I don't know, or that there is stuff going on. Maybe that's why the rough route instead of the scenic route is going to better prepare us to help others in the cosmos.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we do, is help others that haven't made it to the levels that we're at.
Yeah, I try to reassure myself that that's possible. Because otherwise this is a shitty trip.
Yeah, it's just a bad trip then. What do you like about George?
Well, he it was talking about having been through the galactic planes and having been introduced to the dark side, and he wrote a book called Our Universal Journey, and I helped with the edit. I did the edit, actually. I didn't help with it. I did the edit. And it's about, he talks about Saturn and the control systems from Saturn and how it works and how that ties into the chakra system. And basically he describes the whole system of control and manipulation from the Vatican on to Saturn to the moon. And it's an interesting read. If you want a copy of the book, I have a case of them that I never did anything with, which he used to pay me for the edit, but I can send you a copy of it if you're interested. I mean, you could probably just open to a random page and you'll get the whole book.
Right, and you could possibly do that, or I could use some of my sleuthing skills to find a copy online.
Well, yeah, and they're available. He didn't make much money on it because people started, once he put it in PDF format, people just started sharing it, and that he lost all his money on it. So
right. Well, that's why I said if you just pretend you send me that, it's kind of like I'm not actually stealing.
Right. Okay, I can pretend to do that. Who are some other sources that you would trust? You said you mentioned Henry Macau.
I have
Are there others?
I haven't seen too much of his work, but his vibe is, I can tell he's not like selling a story for the most part. He's making as much sense as he can. Randy Kramer, I know he was involved. Basically, a lot of people. You can toss up names, and I can tell you what I know about them. I'm trying.
Oh,
Of course,
what?
I'm trying to think about people. I can't think of any names.
I can't either. The only one that comes up in my mind is the one I mentioned earlier, who like I said, I don't think I think she knows some, but I don't think she's really tapped into things. Is oh, what's her name? Now I can't think of it.
What does she do?
She's the one that's on. Uh, she's on that late night show, the old Art Bell show. Um, and she's done research. She started out doing research on the cattle mutilations and things like that. And I mentioned her name earlier, and I just can't think of it for some reason.
There's a crazy story behind the cattle mutilations.
There is. What is going on with those?
What do you know about them?
Well, not a lot. I mean, not a lot. Some people said that it was a government program that was operating.
The only reason I'm telling you these things is because you're helping get the information out. I was warned to never waste time speaking off the record. They told me that somewhere back there, maybe the 70s, 80s, they found AI sucking up cattle, and coring out their rectums, pulling out their glands for the hormones, taking their blood, and taking some tissue. And basically, they described it that the AI uses that to format three-dimensional bodies that will resonate with the field of the Earth, so it can incarnate, if you will, in a mechanical way into the Earth. That ultimately, there are watchdog beings. It's the craziest shit. They wear suits. They have pale skin. They're not human. They pretend to be CIA, FBI. They realize that these human things, they seem to respect everything in a suit and a tie. All right, we'll dress up as one of those things. And so that's part of what people see all around. There's a word for them, but I'm not going to say it because it's pretty friggin' weird. They played a role in the projects. So they began going around to farms, waking up the farmers, beaming cows up into electrogravitic craft, and spraying organs out or coring them out and doing the surgeries. And then the farmer goes and tells the media, and they'll make sure the guy sees soldiers doing it. And he'll tell the media, soldiers are abducting my cows. And so, of course, nobody believes him, or those that can read between the lines, or think they can read between the lines, because everything that we read between the lines is actually the lines that they wrote for us to see. And then there's lines between that. It goes layers. And so now people think the government's doing this to fund their programs, their cloning, whatever. And in actuality, it was, or at least from what I was told, a race of beings that began doing it. And they realized that these beings are getting genetic material from Earth so that they can create bodies, cloned bodies, and basically police the Earth. And so they run this disinfo campaign where they start doing it so that people think it's just our military messing with us or running their own covert operations. Ultimately, now they began doing the same thing, figuring out you can use that genetics and create bodies from it, which can appear either being hyperdimensional or merging and actually appearing to be a physical being on the Earth. and that without some type of resonant genetics, you can't appear on the Earth plane. You would be transcendent. You would be non-corporeal.
Mm-hmm.
And so they mimic it,
So,
again, fighting fire with fire. Or they said originally it was the other intelligence getting smarter and smarter, realizing how it can form itself into new bodies. And the weird thing is, one of those, I don't know if they were telling me the truth, but a lot of this stuff is like, why would, after all that happened, why would they then fill me with this bullcrap? That the original guys that were doing this, they would find them attempting to police UFO sightings and stuff like that. And that they would try to pull them over because they would use old model CIA, FBI cars. Even into today's time, they would be like old cars. But now it looks like the new Will Smith movie version of their new upgraded model cars. And they would try to pull these guys out of the car, and they would find that they're glued into the seat because they're literally merged with the seat and are literally a form of plant-based clone organism, cybernetically operated.
wow.
That the car is the same technology of the being that looks like a person driving the car. The driver is literally just a blow-up doll, but they also have, standalone versions. And then they track the cars with their craft up in the sky, 11,000 feet, and they see the car. As soon as it goes around a corner, it disappears into a wormhole and turns into a UFO and shoots up. And, and so then began Blue Team, which was a specific set of personnel in the military that would be assigned and cybernetically and genetically enhanced to operate in and out of time and catch these beings before they get to the sites that they're going to investigate or try and police.
So are they considered some aspect of AI?
They're the Men in Black.
Well, right, of course.
They're cybernetic organisms that are pretending to be just human enough to blend in.
Right.
That's why everybody describes them as
AI.
Because they don't have our organisms.
Does AI have cyborgs and clone beings here at the moment?
At the moment, but with the event of everything that's gone on, the control system developed their own cyborgs to try and keep them in check. So basically, we have cyborg wars going on right now. Super Soldier
my God.
Super Soldier program is an extension of that, to get cybernetically, genetically enhanced operatives that can compete with a friggin' computer system pretending to be human, bouncing through portals.
Wow. Well, I've heard about the. I've been familiar with the Super Soldier program, and I knew somebody who was involved with it, and I think I read somewhere that they could, in order to protect the information from somebody who's doing time jumps and time travel and other things that are not in this time space, that they would take somebody that's, say, 55 years old that's been doing this, and they would take his complete essence out and put it into like a 7-year-old, and then transfer the 7-year-old's awareness into the 55-year-olds, so that nobody could break them or get any information out of them. So that sounded like an interesting process. That is one that I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, that is one layer of it.
Oh.
The whole rich people living forever. If that's all. If that's all it was, I'll do whatever you want for the rest of my life. That's the cover story, so nobody freaks the F out because they realize what's actually happening.
So are the people who are the really wealthy people in the world, are those old bodies that we see, the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and whoever else, have they transferred their whole essence into some other body by now?
There's no need to touch on names specifically,
Oh, okay.
But if you get wealth in this world, if you get any influence in this, in this world, I got hiccups now. If you get influence, you have to be brought up into the system so that you don't say or do the wrong thing to open up a vulnerability to where the foreign intelligences could hijack that person's influence on the timeline, and perform the same soul switch and inhabit that person's consciousness and then lead everybody down into darkness. That's why everything's handled that way. And the other aspect is, if you're going to ever get that wealth and that power, they're going to show that person so many things right to their face, like I've described to you, that they're not going to go off and go to Thailand and be like, yeah, F that. I'm just going to do this. The person who decides that is thinking in their head, I'm going to do that because I don't care and I'm just going to die over there because it's too scary. They're either going to be brought up into the system and working to try and preserve humanity, or they're going to be hijacked by that same system I described that got to them first, or they're not going to have any power, any type of structure in this situation. Part of the unveiling is because people are gathering wealth in ways that they can't control. The runner-ups for the elite, basically, they're protecting themselves so that they don't get scared by the spooky occultists. They haven't been through this. They're not protected. They don't have self-destruct explosives put inside their brains, so in case they get hijacked, they just die instantly. And at that point, they could be hijacked, and before we know it, everyone could switch, and we're in a timeline where the only people that have power are AI. With the creepy humans, that's what we want. The casual, non-blinking entity that looks really strange, that's what we don't want.
Right. I've heard that all of the presidents and the movie stars have been cloned. Is that also accurate?
Not going to get too specific. That started
right
earlier on, the 30s and the 40s, became partially infiltrated, aka hybridized, and had to be controlled through the means that I described, to the point where you got the power, you have a chip. Well, if somebody kidnaps you, either everyone that kidnaps you dies instantly and you get teleported out, or that chip is activated and that person that got kidnapped dies.
Yeah.
And so the secrets are safe, basically. And it's not about secrets, it's about power. Because that person is a gateway to the influence of millions of people.
Oh, yes.
About how inserting these memes, the hieroglyphs, the cuneiform of the mind, that an AI system can do that and entrance an entire nation. And which is basically what we're witnessing, but in a controlled manner, where there are fail-safes, there are higher dimensionals involved, and all the things that we talked about that could kick on as soon as people are ready to handle the truth and aim for the higher continuum, the peaceful resolution.
Good. Well, I certainly am aligned with that one.
A very, very strange situation when they get to describing the little bit of the security methods that they're allowed to tell me, which I'm sure I might have gotten one or two things that I possibly, could, if I told somebody, could threaten the system,